Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the history and advancement of rail logistics in the United States. So today, trains transport about 40% of the world's cargo. However, in the early days of the United States, one would have to utilize a boat or a horse-drawn buggy to get an item from point A to point B. And the evolution of the locomotive technology in the United States has really changed the landscape of logistics and how people and goods would be moved. So starting out with the westward expansion, so some of the challenges of this were due to the terrain. Um, Typically, it would take about 2 months to reach California from New York, and with the introduction of the railroad, that was reduced significantly. So the golden age of rail was a term used to describe the period of time between the 1880s and the 1920s, and this really slowed down with the introduction of the automobile. So the Pacific Railway Act was an act introduced on July 1st, 1862. This is something that happened while Abraham Lincoln was in office. This act would serve to the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad and would form the Union Pacific Railroad and the Central Pacific Railroad. And the plan was for those two rail companies to work inward and meet up in Utah, which they did on May 10th, 1869. It would take several decades for tracks to be laid that would transport all the cargo that trains would transport. And on this next slide, I have a graphic that kind of shows the miles of track that is in the United States. So in 1840, there was about 2,800 miles of track, and then you can really see a big increase. By year 1945, there was about 227,000 miles of track. It reduced a little bit. And today we're sitting at about 140,000 miles of track in the United States. So another proving ground for the advantages of rail transport and logistics was during the Civil War. The Union Army really took advantage of the rail system. And some of the advantages that it gave them was to transport troops and supplies to the front lines quickly. Trains could hold 50 times the weight that a steamboat could, and it would also reduce the cost to the Union Army. And one case in point is the Battle of Chickamauga, where Abraham Lincoln sent 20,000 troops from D.C. to Georgia in just 11 days. This was a distance of about 1,200 miles, and that would go down as the longest and quickest troop movement in the 19th century. Okay, so the evolution of the engine. So the first train engines were based on a British design, were steam powered. These proved to not be as reliable. They would derail often. So in the 1920s, the arrival of the diesel electric powered engine gave trains the ability to increase their car lengths, which went up to about 150 car lengths using a diesel electric powered engine. And this would also cut the cost of labor required to use train, as they would only have to stop to refuel and change their crew. And then in the 1970s, with computer advancement, trains started using computer control systems, which would give them the ability to run more efficiently. And all this advancement in technology would give rail companies an advantage in job bids as they were able to run more efficiently and keep the costs down. So it made them more attractive to consumers for logistic movement. Continuing on in the evolution of the engine, so speed of service, cost, and sustainability, these are all some of the critical deliverables in logistics. And as continued technology has helped rail logistics, rail companies can thrive in these areas. And one case in point is the company CSX. They are able to move over 150,000 20-foot containers from the Port of Savannah annually. So some of the common items that trains move are agriculture, automobiles, clothes, coal, electronics, furniture, lumber, machinery, and paper. Some rail logistics facts about goods. Coal still accounts for about 50% of all combined freight revenue. A 2017 study showed that rail accounts for 43%, the most of all transportation types. So goods are not the only thing that trains can move, so they can also move people as well. And in the 1970s, the Amtrak public transportation came online. It was primarily used to service intercity travel. It serviced 43 states along 21 routes. The Washington to New York route could be accomplished in a time of 2 hours and 59 minutes. So Amtrak has fell off. It's not what it once was in the 1970s. And today it services about 500 communities. And speaking with the technology, the Acela Express line for Amtrak, it was introduced in 2000, and its high-speed capabilities, it could reach up to speeds of 150 miles per hour. So environment. So rail logistics and environmental impact. They're really leaders in this in the transportation industry for the environment. Rail engines are more fuel efficient than truck transportation. They have lower greenhouse emissions. According to the Association of American Railroads, freight by rail instead of truck reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 75%. And trains are 4 times more fuel efficient than trucks. So in summary, the introduction of the train in the United States really changed the landscape in which goods and people could be moved, and still used today by many companies. So now this is the end of the presentation, so I open the discussion forum up for any questions or comments that you may have on my presentation. Thank you for your time.